Hello, my name is Rick Wilfert with the Harken Tech team. Today we are going to be doing a furling installation of a Mark IV Unit 0 ocean furler on this Catalina 27. First thing we're going to be doing is loosening up the backstay and rigging a temporary headstay forward. Make sure that our headstay is loose so we can take a trip up the mast and get this whole headstay off. We designed our Mark IV ocean furler based off of our Mark IV racing furler, one of our most popular products. And we gave it the features cruisers needed at a less racy price.
The tools that will be needed for this project would be a long and short tape measure, a power screwdriver, drill bits, hacksaw, side cutters, rat tail file, hex keys, which come provided with the kit, slotted and Phillips screwdrivers, needle nose pliers, rigging or black tape, a center punch, and a hammer.
So what we're doing here is we have the old headstay off here, and what we're doing is just confirming that our pin-to-pin measurement that we originally were supplied is the same, so that our new headstay is the same length as our old Harken stay. So we have our new headstay here, which was minus the pin-to-pin length of our Harken toggle. So as you can see when I lay this in here where it's going to live, our pin-to-pin measures are exactly the same. So what I've done here is I've drilled the 2 holes for our trim cap. In the manual, it'll show the distance and size that those holes need to be from the top of the cap for the top trim cap installation. So we're going to push the headstay through our top foil. Then we're going to take our 2 halves of our trim cap, put those around the wire, install the trim cap. Then we're going to take our 2 screws, one of the points I want to really make here is how easy these connectors and foils and bushings go together compared with our previous ESP furlers. As you're going to see here in just a second, this thing goes together really easy. So I have the connector on the wire with the hook ends facing up. I'm going to put my connector bushing on there. Slide it into the foil. Line that up. Then I'm going to get out my connector screws. Put a little dab of red Loctite on the screw itself. Maybe I'm going to put a little down in the hole. So we have our top 2 screws installed with red Loctite. Then we're just going to simply bring the next section of foil up, slide the joint together, and repeat that same process and tighten them up. One of the other big differences that you'll notice from the Mark IV ocean furler to all previous Harken furlers is that there's no use of connector wedges. All that's used are just the connectors with the connector screws with the red Loctite on them. When we designed the Mark IV ocean, we designed the ID of the foil just large enough so that you could pass a marine eye through it. This will really help out if the person is doing a retrofit where they're trying to reuse their existing headstay. In our application, we started off with a new headstay, so that part wasn't all that important, but the diameter of the ID of the foil is just large enough so that a swaged eye will pass. As we do this installation, I just want to point out how easy it is. I mean, as you can see here, we're just doing this at a dock at the local marina in an afternoon. Just want to point out the part that this is very retrofittable to boats that have, if you have an old furler that you're looking to replace. This is very much something that could be done in an afternoon. If you have any questions at all while installing your Harken furler, please feel free to give me a call. I consider it job security. The manuals are really good, but I'm here for it if you have any questions. We're at the bottom end of things now, and this is our specific 2-foot bottom foil. Pretty much exactly the same process as doing the connector as we've done all along. But I'm going to slide that piece on. Lay my connector underneath my wire. Same process as I've done all along with the connector, with the screws. So on the bottom foil, you'll notice we have a series of holes at the bottom foil. These 5 holes give us some adjustability in case we were off on our pin-to-pin measurement when determining the foil height. So these 5 screws here are for that. These screws here are for when we're going to attach our feeder. Next step in the whole process, once we have our whole foil system built, is to slide the halyard swivel on. You'll notice the up sticker, and then just slide that up and out of the way for right now until we assemble the rest of the lower unit. One point I also want to make is that we've switched to a polycarbonate cover of the drum, which, as you can see, the metal would dent. This part here can withstand a pretty good hard blow, and you see there's absolutely no damage to the furler. I'm going to put our turnbuckle body back together. Just for starters, we're going to put it about in the middle. So we're going to thread it about halfway on so that we have some adjustability when we stand it up and tighten it once we're on the boat. So we're going to remove this clevis pin, hook it onto our Harken toggle. The Harken toggle, again, is the link between the headstay wire and the roller furler itself. So I have the Harken toggle pinned onto the bottom of the turnbuckle. I'm going to slide that up into the unit, take one of the nylon washers, install it on the clevis pin. Once the toggle is pushed up into the unit, I'm going to install the clevis pin, cross pin. I'm going to install the cotter pin. Just bending that cotter pin over. Okay, there we go. One of the last steps we're going to do before we actually stand the rig up is just to put these screws in here temporarily. We'll adjust these to their final home after we get the rig and after we stand the foil system up. So first of all, we don't lose them, and so that the lower unit is secured. All right, so the last thing we do before we're going to stand the whole thing up is we're going to install the feeder. We're just going to put a dab of blue Loctite on all the 4 screw holes, as well as on the 4 screws. We're just going to run these 4 screws in. There we go, now we're ready to stand the whole thing up. And then we're going to start raising it up into position. All right, go ahead, whenever you're ready. One point of emphasis here is that we have to have the halyard swivel at the bottom end resting against the feeder so that when we stand it up, it doesn't come slamming down and slam onto our feeder here. Now we're kind of at the last step. So we've raised the whole furler, it's in spot. I am going to remove the 2 screws at the top of the unit. I had one out already, so I'm just going to do that. And then I'm going to pop out the cross pin. That allowed the foils to fall down. Pull out that cross pin. We're going to take the furler up to the bow of the boat. Gonna put the cotter pin in now. So we're going to take our halyard that we were using as our temporary headstay. We're going to hook that on just onto the tack shackle here. So just so I can tighten up the turnbuckle, I am going to put a vice grips on the swage fitting to hold the foils up at their height, while I then go ahead and tension up the turnbuckle. So general rule of thumb as far as headstay tension is, or what we would want for headstay tension, would be to just simply sight up the foils and make sure that they are straight as an arrow. That's a pretty good general rule as far as headstay tension, or as far as Harken likes to get involved with tuning and all that good stuff. Working in the tech service area, a lot of times when we hear problems about furling not working properly, 90% of the time it's due to not enough headstay tension. So like I said originally, general rule of thumb for headstay tension to have the furler work properly is to simply sight up the foils, and they need to be straight as an arrow. There can't be any big sag in the headstay, or that will cause difficulty as far as furling. Put a couple wraps of black electrical tape around our turnbuckle here with our cotter pins in it. Make sure that our headstay tension is staying tight. All right, so we got the furling line coming from the back of the boat. I'm going to take the furling line, go through one half of the guard, and put that guard over here on the deck. And then I'm going to go through, top to bottom, the hole in the furling drum. Just going to tie a simple overhand knot. As small as possible. And pull that tight. So then I had the one half of the guard assembly already on, and I'm going to go ahead and put the other half on, and I basically want the opening facing our first lead block. So like I said, I just want to make sure that the opening in the guard assembly is facing that very first lead block, which it is right now, which is pretty much all the time straight back. Next up is going to be to put our feeder screws back on. We actually had to remove those feeder screws to be able to slide the lower unit up when we tensioned our headstay.
Now we're going to run the furling line through the lead blocks on the lifeline stanchions, and then it is time to hoist the headsail.
So basically what we're doing here is we got our halyards hooked onto the top of the halyard swivel, and then we got our sail hooked onto the bottom of the halyard swivel, and we are going to start to feed that up. Going to connect the tack to the tack swivel via this shackle. So what we're doing now is we're going to be winding up the drum, winding up the sail, which as you'll notice the line is coming forward, and winding onto the drum for when we go to unfurl the sail. Once the sail's all the way rolled up, we're going to want to put about 5 or 6 more wraps onto the drum, just so that as the line's going onto the drum, that load isn't applied to the composite lower flange. It's trying to squeeze tighter onto the aluminum hub of the actual furler. As you can see here, we have a real nice line from our last lead block going forward onto the drum, so that at a 90-degree angle, so that we're getting a real nice wrap of line onto the drum. It's filling both the top and bottom parts of the drum evenly. Around Harken, we call it the cruising furler, but everywhere else, it's the Mark IV Ocean unit. And I'm Rick Wilford from Harken Tech Service. If you have any questions or concerns, give us a call or shoot us an email.